Welcome to Business Sense and Emotional Intelligence, communicating your way to success. I'm delighted to say that I'm able to draw on some footage where I have spoken about emotional intelligence. So not all of the filming will be done in the studio. And today I have a clip for you. Please bear with me because you will see from my eyes in this clip they're actually quite swollen because I delivered this presentation in London for the Professional Speaking Association literally just days after delivering a eulogy at my mother's wedding at my mother's funeral. And I actually refer to the difficulty of doing this. It wasn't just speaking, it was actually planning it that was so difficult because my relationship with mother wasn't what it could have been, and we all have relationships that aren't what they could have been, and this is where emotional intelligence can really come in and help improve such relationships. The presentation is called Leadership is for Everyone, and it comes from a place where I believe that empowering people to think and behave more emotionally intelligently will actually help them be a leader in their own right. And I think too many of us think that leadership is just for a certain type of person. I think stats show that the higher percentage of leaders are actually introverts rather than extroverts. But the stance that I take is, I think it's linked to definitely emotional intelligence. It's linked to the importance of authenticity and also to holding ourselves accountable. And I think if we draw those things together, then every single one of us can be a leader in our own right. And the way that we do that is through living out our core values. It's through setting an example to other people. It's through getting out the way of ourselves, to, as I say, holding ourselves accountable, and also addressing consequences to our thought patterns and to our behaviours. In the presentation, which I think will come in the second half of this programme, I do talk about Gardner, who is a prolific writer on emotional intelligence, and he also has a great book out there called 5 Minds for the Future. It's now been around for a few years, and you'll see from this footage I might look a bit different. It was filmed a few years ago, but even educationalists have had Howard Gardner in to talk about his thinking on emotional intelligence, multiple intelligences, and how that can empower and help our young as well as, dare I say, us oldies. So do read his books. I think he's absolutely brilliant, and I hope that the presentation does inspire you. As I say, I am speaking in London very shortly after reading my mother's eulogy. I remember sitting on the train just wondering whether or not I would be able to go ahead and talk. It was clearly around Christmas time, you'll see that, and it wasn't till the very, very last moment that I took myself into the loos and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I just remember asking myself, are you going to do this, or is it a bridge too far? And obviously, by the fact it's being captured on film, I took the decision that I would actually film it. And again, I hope that, there are times when you might be sat up against a difficult decision, and very often there's very heavy evidence and a very good reason not to do something, or to maybe go ahead and do something that doesn't quite feel right. And so I hope that resilience, perseverance, courage, whatever it is, inspires you to maybe go that extra mile as well. One last thing I want to say just before I go into the footage is, often I'm asked, how is it that I can speak without notes? What is it? What is the tool that I use? And I use a very simple tool. that I call bus stops. And it's where I think of getting on a bus and stopping at different stops, and at each of those bus stops I have a little mini agenda that unwinds. And see if you can spot my bus stops. You'll see my head click into, if you like, one area, and a little mini agenda goes down in my head. I cover those points, and then, if you like, I move along and go to the next bus stop. And the way it serves you too is if something goes wrong, so for example, if suddenly there's an alarm or something like that that can throw your concentration, all you have to do is go back and think of the heading of one of your bus stops, and then the mini agenda will automatically unravel so that you can pick up your thread and talk about your content again. So I hope that you enjoy it. Please remember, I have just spoken my mother's eulogy, and this is Leadership is for Everyone. Good morning, London PSA. It's a delight to be here speaking to the Professional Speaking Association, and today I want to talk about leadership being for every single person. I'm going to start by talking about a couple of stories, then unpack some of the traits of leadership, and then look at how every single person can access their own leadership skill, and then hopefully leave you with a sense of motivation and a picture and a vision of the way forward. These students were so excited. The coach had arrived at Oxford midnight to pick them up, and they were going to go skiing in France. It had snowed heavily in London, and ice was all over the road, especially there had been a heavy downpour of rain. As they settled into the coach, of course, conversations settled down, and some of the students then started to doze. After about 20 minutes of this more quiet time, some of them came to, realising there was something seriously not right. When they looked out at the window, they could see that the coach was actually on the outside lane and hitting against the central reservation. The back end of the coach had clearly been lost. The students started to feel very, very frightened and scared, and they realised they were then streaming, leaning on the central reservation in a total state before there was a massive impact. Silence, darkness, and sheer fear reigned on that coach. Then there were some whimpers, and then somebody was saying, "Get off the coach. Leave everything, get off the coach." They later realised there was diesel on the road. Not one student was wearing a seatbelt. They had bruising, some of them on their necks where they had hit the bar in front, and there were certainly bloody and broken noses. My daughter was on that coach. Second story. How will you know at the end of your life whether you have been successful or not? My mother died recently, and I was speaking at her funeral about 2 weeks ago. And when I was planning the eulogy, I didn't know what to say. Because my mother wasn't a demonstrative, endearing mother, I couldn't come out with these wonderful stories of how we skipped along holding hands, having jokes and a lot of fun. And I needed to tell the truth. And then it came to me. My mother was a woman of substance. She wasn't the tactile person, certainly as I was growing up, yet in the congregation, many of the people there had known her as a very tactile, loving person. But that was not my experience, and I didn't want to undo their image of her. But she was a woman of substance. She loved us children by doing things. She would make things. She was fantastic at cooking, at gardening, at sewing on our school labels. We all went to boarding school. I can't tell you how well every single name tag was sewn on our kit. It was phenomenal. So this is how I started the eulogy. I was once asked, how will I know at the end of my life whether I have been successful or not? I didn't expect the question, and I wonder how you would answer that question now today. So I had to think on my feet, and this was my answer. If, at the end of my life, the church is full, then maybe, just maybe, I have been successful. So look around you, Mum. The church is full. Job done. Well done. EQ, emotional quotient, is better known as emotional intelligence. It is a tangible tool that can sit alongside your services or your product, and it can be taught. Leaders with high EQ have less stress, they're more effective, and they earn more money. There's a great saying, just because we have pains, it does not give us permission to be a pain. I believe that teaching emotional intelligence has a direct impact on your sense of success and your net profits. EQ will empower you and your workforce to drive the change that you want. Change brings transition. EQ can help unpack what's holding you back and speed up that period of transition.